succulents ain't for me except for this one. To be honest, I set and forget. And it's so easy that they can propagate themselves. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma, and today we're going to be talking about this, the Crassula Ovata, probably better known to you as the jade plant. It goes by a few other names as well, such as money plant or money tree and lucky plant. And that is actually because in Asia it's considered a good luck plant because it kind of activates financial energies and helps people earn money. It is symbolic of growth, renewal, and prosperity. So you might see these in Asian restaurants right by the front door. That is said to provide like extra luck, which is pretty cool. Joe's mom actually has 6 of these plants in her windows, and it's actually really sweet because there's one to represent everyone in her family, plus Joe's brother's fiance and myself, which is super sweet. And this plant is actually propagated from those plants. So these are from Joe's mom, which is super sweet. Thank you, Janet. Jade plants are super easy to grow. They're actually one of the only succulents that I find easy to grow. Most other succulents just don't work for me. I don't know. Jade plants, they're so easy. They are so easy. This is actually the only succulent I have at the minute because it's the only one that I actually can keep alive and I actually like. So sorry to you succulent lovers, but succulents ain't for me except for this one. So really quick before I get into it, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and comment on other houseplants you'd like me to talk about in the future, and subscribe for more. So right, let's get into it. Correct watering of jade plants is actually really important. Like most succulents, they don't like to sit in moist soil, so you really want to make sure that you are not watering them too often because that will lead to overwatering and a whole slew of issues. I let mine dry out completely before watering again. I know some people say to water more often, but personally I don't like doing that because I just know I will kill it otherwise. So I let it dry completely before I give it any more water. Sometimes I let it stay dry for a little bit too. Oops. I try and wait till the leaves start getting a little bit wrinkly because that shows to me that it's thirsty. But if you do notice wrinkling leaves, take a look at the soil because if it's dry, it probably means it's thirsty. But wrinkled leaves can also be a sign of overwatering. So if the soil is wet, that means that you have probably some bigger issues. Yellowing leaves is the same, probably from overwatering. The plant might also be squishy, and that's just because it's probably root rotting or stem rotting, just because they don't like sitting in the water. I think I end up watering this probably once every week or two in the spring and summer, which is the active growing season, when they'll need a little bit more. And then maybe once a month in the winter, if I remember. To be honest, I forget about this and neglect it because it's easier than dealing with root rot, so. Like most succulents, jade plants like bright light. They do need some direct sunlight throughout the day, otherwise they will grow leggy and like sparse, which of course isn't ideal, but it's not the end of the world. 4 to 6 hours of direct sun is ideal for mature jade plants. They like that good bit of sun in the day, but be a little bit more sparse with younger plants because they're a bit more fragile and they can get sunburned. Also, if you notice that your leaves are going red around the edges or on the leaves, that means that your plant is sun stressed. So maybe pare back on the sun a little bit. I personally keep this one really close to a southwest facing window. It gets quite a lot of afternoon sunlight, which is totally okay indoors. It seems to like that. To be honest, it's still growing fairly slowly. I probably could give it a brighter spot, but I live in the UK and we don't have sun, so I can only do what I can do. Jade plants can summer outside. They love being outside. Back in California, my mom has a jade plant and it lives exclusively outside, but that's because California is sunny most of the time. And I'm pretty sure we got it from my grandma, but it is huge and old and loves being outside. I think it gets occasionally some direct sun, but not all that much. If you're bringing your plants outside, you want to slowly adjust them to the outdoor sun. You don't just want to put it in bright, direct full sun right away, that can really shock your plant, burn it, and cause it to die. It's best to start in an indirect light spot and then slowly increase the amount of sunlight it's getting. But in the end, they'll probably prefer morning sun rather than afternoon sun, because afternoon sun is just a bit too hot for them, especially if you live in a warmer country. The ideal temperatures for jade plants is between 18 and 24 degrees Celsius or 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Not a huge range of temperatures. They like it fairly warm. In the nighttime or in the winter, they'll tolerate down to like 13 Celsius or 55 Fahrenheit, but they won't necessarily enjoy it. Anything lower than that, and it could damage your plant. They are certainly not frost tolerant, so best to avoid going too low in the temperatures. They're also not very big fans of drafts, both hot and cold, so try to avoid them in your placement of jade plants. If you do intend to summer it outside, you want to wait until nighttime temperatures are above 18 degrees Celsius or 65 Fahrenheit. Otherwise, it'll be too cold for the plant. So wait until nighttime temperatures are that high. And then you want to be bringing it back in before temperatures dip below like 10 Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit. Average home humidity should be fine for jade plants. They like fairly dry air, so I would not suggest adding extra humidity to them at all. Their ideal is between 30 and 50%, but your home should be fine for them. You should fertilize these sparingly in the spring and summer, probably about once a month, and then not at all in autumn and winter. You know, just the typical only in the summer and spring kind of thing. I personally use liquid gold leaf, but you can use whatever general water soluble houseplant fertilizer that you have. Obviously, succulent and cactus soil is ideal for them because it's a succulent. They really like their soil to be well draining because they don't like too much moisture staying at their roots, and well draining soil prevents rot. If you only have normal potting soil, I would suggest adding a good bit of perlite and sand to the mix, because that will really encourage the soil to be more airy and less dense and moisture holding. So you really want to avoid dense, rich soils because they're not going to like that. Jade plants don't mind being root bound. In fact, they kind of like it. They're not going to need repotting very often. Young plants, you could probably repot every 2 to 3 years. Mature plants every 4 to 5 years. Repotting in terracotta is actually a really good idea for jade plants because the terracotta will wick away extra moisture, but I personally, I'm not the biggest fan of terracotta in my home. As long as you repot in a pot with drainage holes, you should be fine. As you can see, I've got mine in a nursery pot inside of a cash pot. That just allows me to dump out extra water once I've watered. Propagation of jade plants is actually pretty easy. I grew this plant from propagation, and it's so easy that they can propagate themselves. So like if a leaf falls down into the soil, it can root and grow into a new plant. I know my parents' one has done that loads of times. They just grow from themselves. It's super easy. So you can propagate them with stem or leaf cuttings. Either way, you should let the cutting callus over for a few days just to like form a good scab over the fresh bit of plant, and then continue on propagating it. With stem cuttings, I propagated these ones in water, just took the stem, plunked it in some water and waited. It did take quite a while just because they're not the quickest of growers or propagators, but eventually it grew roots and I potted it up into soil. I've also propagated these from leaves, one of the few succulents I've had success with leaf propagation. Basically, once the leaf is scabbed over, you want to put it scab side down on the soil, and roots are going to grow from that scab, and it'll grow a little baby plant from that area. And then eventually the original leaf is going to die off, and that's totally fine and totally normal, and you've got a little baby plant. Unfortunately, jade plants are mildly toxic to humans. Don't eat them. But they are extremely toxic to pets. Do not, absolutely do not let your pets eat them. And you should even contact your vet if you notice like nausea, vomiting, lethargy, weakness, excessive sleeping, extra aggression, loss of muscle function, incoordination, and depression after ingesting. Obviously the symptoms are going to be more severe if they've eaten more of it and less severe if they've eaten less of it. But really you do not want to let your pets eat this plant because it is extremely dangerous to them. So avoid that at all costs. So yeah, that's it. That's everything you need to know about the jade plant, the good old Crassula ovata. Easy peasy plant, super simple. To be honest, I set and forget. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and comment on other houseplants you'd like me to talk about in the future, and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!